Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another edition of Native Bidaské. We're in election season. Labor Day's come and gone, and the pundits are telling us that after Labor Day, people really get into the election. And with that, we have a presidential debate coming up on Tuesday, September 10th. And with that, we have a special guest who actually wrote a letter to the networks and to both candidates wanting more Native representation. But before then, let me introduce our political editor, Neely Bardwell. Neely, how are you today?
Good, Levi. How are you?
I'm doing well. And who do we have with us? We have Chairwoman Brenda Meade from the Coquille Tribe. Did I say that right?
Coquille.
Okay. Well, welcome to Native Bidaské. And Chairwoman, you sent a letter. You and two other chair people, and you can tell who wrote the letter. But who were those two people who co-wrote that letter with you?
Yes. Well, I just first have to say, Daisla, greetings, friend, and thank you so much for having me today. I am so happy to be able to talk a little bit about the letter and just about our hopes for this presidential campaign. Yes, we, the Coquille Tribe here, we're located in Southern Oregon, on the Southern Oregon coast. And, we're a small tribe compared to most, but we have really put out a lot of information just in Indian country to just recognize the strength of tribes are when we are all working together. So just really getting a voice out for tribal sovereignty, recognizing that government to government relationship, and just the need for us to have good relations with the federal government too. And I was honored to have the chairman from Tunica Biloxi tribe join us on this letter, as well as the chair from the Confederated Tribes of Kusla and Sayusla tribe. And there were others. We had to get this letter out quickly, though, because we're hoping that we can get some questions to the presidential candidates and really put a light on Indian country and just really recognizing that trust responsibility is there, and we need to be a part of this discussion of looking to the future for our nation.
Neely, do you have a question for the chairwoman?
Yes, so you said you sent a letter to ABC. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about why you guys decided to write this letter?
Yeah, this is such an important election. And, when we think about there's nearly 10 million Native Americans who could possibly vote in this presidential election, it really reminds us that we have a voice and we need to use it. And we also need to hear from both candidates how they expect to just recognize that Indian country faces disproportionately high health disparities. And it's not just about healthcare. It's about elder care. It's about education. It's about that trust responsibility the federal government has to Indian tribes and to tribal nations. And sometimes we hear these same comments from many leaders that they recognize sovereignty, they recognize that trust responsibility, but what we need to hear is how they intend to strengthen those relationships and recognize those agreements that the tribes have with the federal government, because we're all different, and we need to recognize that we have different treaties, we have different promises that have been made to each of our nations, and we want that to be stronger. The Biden administration did some things that was really good for tribes, but we continue to be lagging in this the ability to work together. We are inadequately funded in healthcare systems today for tribes. And it's just not recognizing that relationship and the ability for Indian country to address those with adequate funding, with support from our partners, and to really find a way to stop encouraging tribe versus tribe issues, stop like making us compete for this funding and compete for being recognized for natural resources matters, land, water, resources are always those things that continue to come up. There's always, it seems like this expectation of tribes versus tribes, or that we're not all going to agree. But if you were to talk to the chairman of Tunica Biloxi, you would hear him talk about that this nation is all Indian country, and we need to start looking at it like that, and that the tribes are good partners. And we just want to hear from those candidates how they want to grow this. Our tribe has dealt with the fact that we were a terminated tribe. We were terminated by the an act of Congress in 1954. That wasn't so long ago, and later fought to be re-recognized, to be restored once again by Congress. And so each tribe has different promises, but it still comes down to the federal government's responsibility to start closing the gaps on these disparities. It's housing, it's all these things, but just looking at each nation separately and yet recognizing that we're better when we're all working together.
Yeah, you mentioned healthcare and housing. What other issues you feel like Indian country should be addressed, like water rights, or what type of other issues?
Yeah, it's the basic needs too. It's healthcare, yes, but it's elder care, it's daycare, taking care of our young people, to be able to get people out into the workforce. It is housing, and we're dealing with different levels of needs. Our tribal members, because of very effective assimilation programs, federal policy, we're spread out across 39 states in this nation that we serve healthcare services, elder care services to our tribal members. That's our priority, is to take care of our people and connect them back to their homelands, to their culture, their heritage, our language programs, our ceremonies. But there is a lot to that of being a sovereign nation, and it is about having access to your lands, your ancestral lands, your homelands, those places that your ancestors have gathered your most traditional important foods. And it will always be a conversation about those resources, about water. The tribes are the best group of folks to even talk about water issues with. We're addressing those issues today on our Coquille River. Our salmon return numbers were near extinction, and today, because the Coquille Indian Tribe and the state of Oregon are fishing in our state, we are finding that we are able to bring more funding together. And for us as our Restoration Act, another example is that Restoration Act, it says exactly where we can place land into trust. And sometimes other tribes for those things, but the truth is we don't have to compete. Somehow has brought that into Indian country in such a horrible way. It's really benefited lobbyists and attorneys, and we're tired of paying for pay for healthcare, and really just having the support, the continued support of a federal government administration to deal with each tribe differently and look at the promises made and keep those promises. Indian gaming was intended to help us pay for government services to support our people with healthcare. And, there's some that have it and some that don't. And, gaming was always intended for all tribes. It brings more than just money. It brings opportunities for employment and all those things. But we have some work to do. We've seen our Department of Interior Secretary, Deb Haaland, talk about land and trust issues and policies needed and real consistency. And we just continue to look to our trustee to find ways to be fair, to have good processes, and find ways to partner with us with good intentions too.
So what questions are you hoping to see asked at the night of the debate?
Oh, we put some examples in there, and it was really about, we have 100 questions.
You can pick from anywhere.
I know. I always want to know how they will respect sovereignty. How will they respect the treaties or congressional acts that the promises made? Because I would like to hear that they actually recognize that every tribe is different and that it needs to be respected in that way. And I think that just recognizing that we are unfunded. Those promises that the federal government has made to Indian country it's unfunded. It is, we say unfunded, we say underfunded, but the truth is we can do better. And we need to stop all the bureaucratic red tape of reports and worrying about that.
Well, I call it white tape.
Oh, white tape. I might use that.
No, hey, you bring up a good point, and I love the idea of the tone of the letters. I read it, and we reported on it. I have a question. As a tribal leader, do you think our elected officials really do understand Indian country? Like let's use the current president, Joe Biden. Do you think he really has a pretty good grasp on Indian country? And my assumption is the intent of the letter is to make sure that whether it's the Democratic nominee or the Republican, Kamala Harris in case of the Democrats and Donald Trump, do they really understand Indian country? Do you think do you think Joe Biden understands Indian country, the issues?
I think he made a good start with, I think it was December of 2023, he issued an executive order that challenged Indian country to come together. And I believe the purpose was really about next steps in self-determination and self-governance. And it was asking the question of the tribes of how do we do this better, which, consultation is really important to us to have a voice, and that process was needed. And I think that some really good work happened. There were some recommendations from Indian country on some pretty simple things to make things better. And it was really, when you have Health and Human Services, carve out 10% that goes to Indian country. When you think that you have funded the healthcare system in the nation, figure 10% is going to go to tribes. And just, we have been through COVID. We have been through crisis in this country, and the tribes have capacity to really address some of these issues. I feel like with this debate, we might hear maybe the next steps of what Harris administration might be thinking, or we need to hear from Trump administration what they would plan to do. We had some issues there, but there's so many needs in Indian country that we have to really figure out how to work with either one and all of them, because I guess that's what my hope is that I hear some glimmer of hope from both of them.
Now, during the, I don't know how long you've been chair of your tribe, but did you work with the Trump administration? Were you tribal chair then? How effective was that Trump administration for Indian country?
I can speak on a couple of things. I've been chairman for 13 years.
Oh, you're a long-term person. I'm sorry. I should have done a little background check on you.
I have lived through the Obama administration, the Trump administration, the Biden administration, and I can say the Trump administration wasn't so good for us. We had put an application to place land into trust to the Department of Interior, and the way we're told to do that through our Restoration Act. We submitted that during the Obama administration, and they did their work. It was a little slow. They were doing some changes in policy too around processes for, it's a gaming application. It's 2.42 acres of land. We later rolled into the Trump administration, and we were in the middle of a NEPA process. And the Trump administration had made some changes to their policies in NEPA policies, which was intended to streamline them, make them quicker, faster. But what we heard is that, well, they didn't realize that it would benefit tribes too. They thought this was a gas and oil kind of process, and they didn't consider how it was going to benefit tribes. So they actually stopped our NEPA process in the middle. Like, we're in the middle of a process that it needs to finish, and they just denied the process midstream and said, go away. That wasn't good for us. That was not good for us. That was not good for any tribe. It was not good for Indian country. And what we did see when the Biden administration came in is they did give us our process back, our NEPA process. We are at the end of that process. It makes me sad that a tribal nation who is trying to do the best for our people is in a 12-year NEPA process. It's just the most ridiculous thing to watch. And I've seen it all. I could talk about it for days if you got time later. But
No, it costs time and money, doesn't it? I mean, these things do not come cheaply, especially when you have to engage with attorneys. And this is a process that 12 years is a long time.
It's crazy.
Too long of a time. That's why I call it white tape.
I'm going to call it white tape from now on.
Okay.
I think it is.
Neely, you get the next question.
So, as you know, the debate is on the 10th. Is there anything? Have you personally or the tribe endorsed a candidate at all?
We've never endorsed a candidate, and I think it's really been about the fact that our focus as a tribal government is our tribal membership is above our tribal council, and for the tribal council to speak on behalf of 1,200 people it's tough. So we've never endorsed a candidate. We have given information, encouraged our tribal members to register to vote, all of those things, and just tried to give as much information about each administration that we can, because we've had successes in both too. There's been legislation that went through during the Trump administration that allowed our tribe to finally manage our timberlands under tribal law instead of mandated by the BIA, and that's sovereignty too. So we're very careful. We try to get information out, but I was blessed to be able to travel and attend the DNC this last, a couple weeks ago. And I have to say that I'm still waiting to hear policy around Indian country from both.
So you were at the Democratic convention?
I was. It was a party.
Yeah. We were down there too. That was great.
It was impressive. What I loved too was just the fact that the Native caucuses were happening. We were able to hear from the Secretary of Interior. We were able to hear from so many tribal leaders and really share our hopes for the next administration too. And getting to talk with senators and congressmen. You asked the question if I think that our congressional or administrative leaders at the federal level understand Indian country, I'd say no. Most don't. Anytime a senator or a congressman can write a letter opposing a tribe is not good, and that happens a lot in this country. And that's something that someday maybe we'll fix, but I don't know. As long as you have a lot of lawyers and a lot of lobbyists, I'm not sure.
I know there's like an ongoing conversation. I remember when Deb Haaland and Sharice Davis were in 2019 became the first ever elected Native American women to serve in Congress. Sharice Davis, Congresswoman Davis, said it's like they spent the first year giving her colleagues Indian 101 because they really don't understand Indian country. So I really do appreciate you bringing this to the forefront because it is so necessary that Indian issues and concerns are taken seriously. And we have my joke is the one time I did a thing about romaine lettuce recall, and a tribal chairman asked me, why in the world would you do an article about romaine lettuce being recalled? Why is that deal with Native Americans? I said, well, we eat romaine lettuce too, right? So it's like a lot of times people forget, they think that all our issues relate to water rights, fishing rights, etc. But we are part of the of American society, and as I say, we eat romaine lettuce, and so therefore, when it got recalled, it was a health hazard. I felt like we needed to publish a notice, and so with that, what issues do you think are out there that go beyond Native specific, like the economy, jobs? I mean, I think we could probably both talk about that for days too, but how it relates to Indian country. But let you talk about it.
Thank you. Well, I would just say here in Coos County, Oregon right now, the Coquille Indian Tribe is one of the largest employers in Coos County.
Wow, nice.
Yes. And we are, again, I don't know if I said it too specifically, but we are also under an MOU with the state of Oregon, and we are managing hunting and fishing in our 5-county service area, which is 10 million acres in Oregon. So we are at the table managing those hunting and fishing decisions in our area. And we are also managing hunting and fishing licenses under tribal law now. Our tribal members no longer have to go and get a state license for hunting, fishing, gathering in the state of Oregon, as long as they're hunting in our homelands, those 5 counties. And I just continue to say that we are good partners, and we are that conduit that can bring people together. And as we grow in capacity, we're also growing as employers. And in our community, there is no other place that you would want to go for your business's Christmas party or whatever is happening in our community, trainings or conventions that wouldn't happen in our facilities. And I think that people need to recognize the importance of Indian gaming in the nation too. We, as a nation, in I believe 1988, the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act was approved that allowed tribes to be that entity, that nation that could game. And what has happened since is just the explosion of state lottery, and now you have mobile gaming and all these things. And it was intended to address those needs of those that needed it the most, and that no one is recognizing that today. I think that's a bad thing. I think that states now rely on those gaming dollars too much. Some tribes do, but we need to also talk about just the opportunities we have in natural resources, forest management. Our forests are burning today, and it shouldn't happen if we could just stop and talk about how these forests used to be for hundreds and hundreds of years and what a healthy forest looks like on the Oregon coast. We'll talk about it all day long because Indian country is managing their homelands better than anyone in this country is. And if there's just opportunities to be partnering, and it's shameful that people are worried that, oh no, the Indians might benefit from it, because you know what? These are important. These are our homelands too. And if it's not good for our people, it's not good for the community either. So, I mean, we have the right intentions for this work. And I just think sometimes the message doesn't come from everywhere that we have work to do.
Yeah, and indigenous knowledge is quite something, actually. With the Biden administration, we had the first cabinet level person ever to serve in a secretarial role, and that's Deb Haaland. We appreciate the work she's done. Are you hopeful that the next administration and all administrations henceforth will have at least one Native American in the cabinet or high-ranking position within federal government?
Yeah, I'm waiting for that president position. Yes. But having Deb there was, I can't believe I'm calling her Deb now just because I think I get to do that now. I got my picture with her last week. So
That's wonderful.
I can. But Secretary Haaland brought something to the Department of Interior that was different than anyone else's brought. And we've had other, assistant secretaries that were, and a lot of assistant secretaries, but when the secretary came in as a Native woman, she brought in just the understanding of, we've had generations of bad federal policy against our people that needs to be considered. And when she started talking about, Indian boarding school issues, I mean, I don't know if you've read that report that they put out. It makes so much sense to why our people are so, there's so much work still to do because there's generations of impacts to these federal policies. And I just, I hope that someday we see it in Health and Human Services. We have someone in the Treasury too, I do believe right now, that's Native American. So yes, I would love to see it. I just think there's so much value in looking at things longer term than what sometimes people look at.
Yeah. And I told Chairman Parikh from Tunica, Biloxi on Saturday, I had a conversation with him. I said, we as Native people should not be asking for crumbs like we used to. We want a slice of the pie, not just the crumbs. And so I really do appreciate the letter. Neely, you have the last question of the day for the chairwoman.
Of course. Well, I want to congratulate you and your tribe on the things that you have been doing and your recent efforts in land back. Could you talk a little bit about what the environment is within your tribe and your tribal citizens as to how they're feeling about this upcoming election?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. We're right in the middle right now of a strategic and master planning process with our general counsel right now, our tribal citizens. And there is a lot of concern, I would say, about environmental issues, about immediate needs of housing. Healthcare systems are I don't want to say deteriorating, that's not the right word, but specialty care is really difficult if you live in rural Oregon to get to. It's at least a 3-hour drive one way or another to the I-5 corridor. And I think that it's almost those basic needs that people are listening for, especially in this debate. I don't know if some people say people already know who they're going to vote for, but I don't know if that's so true for Indian country. I feel like we're waiting to hear something different. I don't know.
Well, with that, we need to bring this to a close. And again, congratulations for sending that letter, and keep us posted if you hear anything response, because we'd like to report on that. And to our viewers, Chi-miigwech for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské. And at Native News Online, we are taking this election very seriously because, as people have said, this is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. And I don't think those are just words. It's really true. And sometimes Native people can be very apathetic or apolitical and say it doesn't really matter. It's the white man's election. I would argue with that it matters who the president of the United States is. So please pay close attention. If you're not registered to vote, get out and get registered. If you have to vote absentee ballot because of travel issues, learn how to fill out the absentee ballot and come to Native News Online, because we're going to be reporting on that. We've already done some reporting on the registration, and we will be working this week actually on a story about absentee ballot, how to fill one out. So tune in again next week to another edition of Native Bidaské. In the meantime, young ones, take care of your elders, give them hugs, and elders, take care of the young ones. Chi Miigwech. We'll see you next week.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another